Hello, my name is Teresita Blanco, the Artsy sister, and today we're reading Saturnastra Rimaru. This is chapter 14. Rimaru came to the top of the temple step, and Mindy was there too, watching Amis like a hawk. And she almost thought that Amis would try to do something funny in order to have an excuse to kill him. And Sativa was there in the form of a very bored cactus. And Rimaru landed on top of the cigarette, and Amis did the same, but he was not used to flying. And he chased after Rimaru on a wing, and he landed in an odd-way, and he fell down a couple of flights of stairs. And Rimaru's distorted face peeled a bit to see Amis getting hurt, and a weird sideways smile painted on the back of her head, and at that very moment, Rimaru was showing all of her bizarre colors. And Amis had traveled a bit, and as with most travelers, he had assumed that he had all of the answers. Still, he had never seen a creature as bizarre as Rimaru, and truth be told, Amis' visitation had been limited to just the nearest libraries and university, and he had been too narrowly focused in acquiring technology to augment himself, and in doing so, he had missed all of the nice things of the world that he had visited that they had to offer. And Amis climbed up the stairs with whatever dignity remaining him, and Amis said to Rimaru, "You may be wondering how is it that I flew?" "I don't care," said Rimaru flatly. A couple of friends had gathered a bit to see the little drama play out, and the children were too keen on seeing the stupid gossip, and Beros and Lorca were there as well. Amis continued, "For the last decade, I have been traveling the world collecting knowledge, and I eventually met a creature called Mundus. And in exchange of telling him..."
The one with Cry Monster?
No, not that Mundus.
Okay.
He said like a different deity.
The
one we kind of have a monopoly on Mundus, and he's not a demon.
Okay.
And he's related to Mindy's Mundus. He's like, they're related. Yeah, I'm not a squid person. Not squid like jellyfish creature. Is it still running?
Yeah, it's running. I just had to zoom out a little.
In exchange of telling him about our world, he gave me this book with all of the information I was thinking. And Amis showed a large book he carried with him everywhere, and Rimaru eyed the book with disdain, and it was called Manual. It was a gaming book with very easy technological recipes to follow, and even a caveman could get a giant robot by following the instructions of that book. And back when Mundus was trying to take over the universe, he usually gave this book as a welcome gift, and he then sat back and waited for the world to burn, and then he would interfere to provide order when he had been the original cause of the world wars to begin with. So he gave them an expensive story for them to like weaken themselves, and then he would, I am here to stop all of the world wars because I am so benevolent. And you could almost say that Mundus thought like the scientists had to make the nuke and stuff just to watch planet Earth burn, and then once we're weak, he'll come and take over. Maybe. Whatever. Who cares? Moving along. "Has it really been a decade? I think you were gone for like 2 years or something," said Rimaru. "My dad lives in a Superboy," said Mindy. "Time flows faster there, but not by much."
In a Superboy?
Void.
Oh, Void. I understood. Okay.
In a Superboy?
Yeah, like,
you said the match, You thought it was like a super guy?
Yeah, like a super kid. I was like, I heard that so wrong.
Void with a V.
Got it.
Superboy is a what?
What? Come again?
It sounded crazy for a second.
Yeah, crazier.
Crazier. You might be wondering how I fly. I don't care.
Alright, go on.
He just does quick, I thought, and with no time frame of reference, it is easy to think that a lot of time has passed, and he can be pretty boring at times when he is going on a rant. I see, said Rimaru. And this conversation was taking place without spoken words, and even with his augmentations, Ame had not figured out how to do the mind reading thing. And the new chip in his brain did pick up all the folks' brain signal, but it simply returned back a scrambled mess. And to do proper mind reading, a fellow has to have a high level of empathy, which is something that Ame sadly lacked. Rimaru then gestured to Ame, and she said, "Continue. I had come to the realization that magic is completely useless. It can only help one individual, and then there is spell exhaustion. The knowledge is carefully guarded, and spells that are used by some may be impossible for others. It is unreliable. As for science, it can be used by anyone, and the artifacts created with it can benefit the many," said Amis. "Aside from the discovery of warm water, are a biological weapon, codenamed Kida. And you were created specifically to kill the gods, and you take their power, their followers, and their divinity, and then you give it unto another that you feel is more worthy, said Amis. Ah, let me guess, you wanted me to make you a god, asked Rimaru. Why become a god when even they are doomed, and even without your interference, most of the gods of this world are already dead, and without followers, it is as if they did not exist, said Amis. Amis continued on a similar Amis rant, and the way Rimaru saw it, Amis was trying and failing to impress her. And it was not the first time that the nerd had tried to impress her with his know-how, and at the end of this one-sided conversation, Amis asked, how is Amelio? So, like, after, he finally remembered he had a brother that is worried sick about him. He is dead, said Rimaru. How did he die? Asked Amis. I killed him, said Mindy, smiling. It is what happens when folks who are looking for a reason to kill run into one another. Amis left the temple after hearing this. He had seemed quite particularly perturbed by this, and mainly he had no way of confirming this. And Sativa asked Rimaru, why did you tell him that his brother was dead? I was never a gossiper type of person, and if he wants to find out about his brother, he should just go home to see him, said Rimaru. Brutus then asked, so are you really a Kida? I was made the same way as a Kida, but unlike their type, I was created to be happy, explained Rimaru. What a coincidence, said Brutus. I too was created to be happy as well. Time?
10 minutes. 17.
And so it happened that after the visit of Amis, Rimaru became intolerable, and his face changed, and it became that of a creature with no eye and or ears, and one mouth with sharp teeth, and the body became thin and ashen color with the bones highlighted, and she stopped changing her attire, and after they were roaming the forest, it got badly scratched, and whenever a fellow would approach her, she would screech. And Brutus asked Mindy, is she always this charming, or is that like her time of the month or something? She's like, she like, I don't know. If she really is a Kida, then this mutation is a little too extreme. The Kidas are always pretty, like a siren they lure you in, and then they take all of your powers, explained Mindy. This, whatever that is not a Kida. And both Brutus and Mindy were seeing Rimaru wandering about the forest, and aside from being a creepy pest, Rimaru was harmless. She just avoided others, and if any fellow got too close, she further refined her hideousness. And the shooter had gotten into the habit of following Rimaru about, and the fact that amused seeing folks who were not in on the joke getting scared by the roaming weirdo. And it was on the fourth day of Rimaru being a total heel when 12 fellows appeared on the temple grounds and they chased after Rimaru. And when a fellow caught up to her, the fellow offered her food, some dogs, or they even hugged her, and eventually the creepy features peeled back and Rimaru was back to her normal self. And Sativa explained to Brutus, as you may know, Rimaru is a bit of a diva, and she takes it way too seriously. She acts like she doesn't care, but she really feels you, and she wants to be loved and liked by everyone without having to work for it. And when the world doesn't meet her high expectations, she gets super weird like that. Sounds like she's a bit of a brat if you ask me, said Brutus. I was thinking more of a word starting with C and ending with a T, said Mindy, laughing. Mindy heard one of the fellows escorting Rimaru say, so what do you want to do, crazy person? I was doing what I wanted. Do you stop me, said powdered Rimaru. It does not do you good to soak ever so much over pointless things, said Marduk. You should be more like a he, suggested Nalini.
Wait, Marduk's been sitting there this whole time?
No, like we said that 12 people came to see her the following day. So like all of her family came to see her, including her brother Marduk. Oh man, oh sis, don't get like that. Dude, cheer up, relax. You know? Like her brothers came to cheer her up because she's like, like they're twisted into a monster and like, every time somebody gets close to her, you know? It's like having a very long 4-day tantrum. Because Amis was mean to her. Even though she pretends she doesn't care about him, she totally does. You know? This is a very complicated person. If a place doesn't work for you, move on. I don't like wandering about too much, said Rimaru. Then go back to Aragon, suggested Lamina, or not. And the following day, Rimaru's brothers and sisters did Rimaru Appreciation Day, and they started with Rimaru And it started with Rimaru waking up after pretending to fall asleep, and he who had the strongest cooking peg had prepared high-protein breakfast, red bean omelet with avocado, with pumpkin spice smoothie, and a blueberry lemon ricotta pancakes. And the omelet was made with unfertilized dragon egg. And like the lady frogs, alabaster dragons produce unfertilized eggs to feed their younglings, and sometimes other starving humans as well. And Rimaru awoke from her bed with a particular dour mood, and she smiled when she noticed the food, and her face still had no eyes, and her hair was unkempt with bangs over her face and nose. And while Rimaru ate, Lamina combed her sister's hair back. And when she concluded, Rimaru had the loveliest set of trances with daisies intertwining into them. And Monkey King and Loki got her out of bed while he fed her and they bathed her and set her out. And the boy priest who passed by the guest room looked with curious glances, but most did not linger. And they had seen similar scenes play out in the palace whenever a noble was in a special type of mood. And the simplest walked Rimaru near the coast of the river, and each of the fellows carried a red balloon. And the group waited for a nice wind to come up, and they released the red balloons, each with a little letter to God or the aliens. And it was a family tradition that had been passed down from generation to generation. And Brutus saw the little balloons jumped up to fetch one, and he read the note, and then he released the balloon again. And Sativa asked him, "What did the balloon say?" "I want my sister to be happy again," said Brutus. "That is so sweet," said Lorica, taking the form of a golden smiley face. And Lorica often communicated her emotions by taking the form of emojis. "Can you see if you fetch the one Rimaru sent?" said Lorica. "It is already too high, and I'm not in the mood," said Brutus. And someone from the city did bother to reach for Rimaru's balloon. And from high in the castle tower, Amis was spying at Rimaru, and he sent a little remote control plane to fetch Rimaru's balloon. And for the last couple of days, he had been tinkering with the idea of planes, and he had managed to make some models out of wood. And when it came to propelling large items, he was having an almost impossible time finding aluminum and titanium. And so most of the manufacturing specs were new, even with the instructions. He was making an awful job of recreating the technology he had acquired. Amis read Rimaru's letter, and he said, "I want Amis to pay for it." Amis pondered on what he had done to Rimaru, and after stalking him from afar and banging his self-centered memory a little, he realized he had done something to Rimaru in the past. And now that he thought he knew what it was, everything made a little more sense. Rimaru had always had a bit of an affinity for vampires, and Amis remembered meeting a long time ago a silver-haired maiden in rose with golden embroidery. And the maiden's companion was in the habit of attacking teenagers, and Amis wondered a bit as to why he had failed to make the connection. And he found it even more strange that the entire subject matter had been erased from his consciousness altogether. And Amis rose from his seat, and he made his way across the lake across the place towards the dock, and from time to time he would check with his binoculars to see what Rimaru was up to. Time?
10 minutes.
With the balloons concluded, he went with Rimaru to look at kitties, and they played together with the cats for a bit. And the others brought Rimaru different cuddly animals, and when Rimaru got bored of the mammals, the seabirds entered the river to see what the fishes were up to. And the river was deep enough to house lots of large freshwater fishes and mammals, and the Asura and her maid formed summoned forth the ever-pleasant bull shark. And the Asura had an affinity for sharks, and during her maritime years, she would often swim with the reef sharks at night whenever her boat was anchored. And aside from sharks, the river surrounding the Temple Island had alligator guards, dolphins, stingrays, and anacondas. And the snakes kept to the riverbanks and were rarely seen. And it was considered to be a sacred animal for temple forts, and according to local legend, the rings of Saturn were the scales of a decaying anaconda that had been slain by the gods and placed in the sky for decoration. And the local religion deified the larger moons of Saturn, and on that day the sun was in a particularly bobby mood. And in Saturn the sun did not travel in a straight arc as it moved from east to west. It bobbed up and down till it finally night came. and depending on the timing, Saturn could have 2 sunrises and 2 sunsets. And Rimaru rose from her head from the water, and the sun helioblast and looked down and smiled. And this triggered the sun to start slowly moving down a bit, even though it was noon. And when this swing concluded, Rimaru was fed once again. And the family then went to the city to take in the sights, and aside from the noble houses, which were close to outsiders, there was not much to look at. And as far as the nobles were concerned, the persons were there just to produce food, and education and farm activities only took place within the mansions. And if the nobles were feeling particularly sociable, they would bump down up in the castle. And in spite of this, Rimaru did find something amusing, and there was a small market for dolls, and some of the presents were specializing in making fancy porcelain dolls. And one of those doll makers had a real beauty, and Rimaru bought the doll that the local had in a pink dress, and lovely blonde hair, and she reminded Rimaru of her sweet vampire friend. And Rimaru's new doll had a foxy pink dress that was high-waisted, and over it the doll had colorful golden poncho, and a large beret with lilacs made of cloth, and the shoes were made of white bunny fur. And the hair had been rooted onto the doll, which was interesting to see how they managed to do that with an oven-baked clay. Time?
7 minutes.
And Rimaru took the doll with her family, and they started spotting for cool areas to take nice photos with the doll. And the single endeavor ate up a lot of time, and eventually they entered the castle, even though they had not been invited. And the guards had been asked to allow Rimaru to roam, and when they saw the others, the guards pondered a bit on what they should do. And in the end, they decided that the easiest thing to do was to let Rimaru and her friends pass, and they were not getting paid enough to care about security. And Kasha saw Rimaru with the doll, and since he had nothing better to do, he did what most rulers did at his age at the palace. He got up from his throne, and he had been looking for an excuse to neglect his royal duties, and he looked over Rimaru and he asked, "What are you up to?" "What does it look like I'm up to?" asked Rimaru, being a bit of a bother. "Don't you have anything better to do with your time?" asked Monkey King, trying to shoo away the pesky king. "This is a family time," retorted Lamina, and she added, painting an imaginary barrier. "You see this? Anything beyond here is not important." And so, it simply made Kasha aware that his bored presence was not wanted, and Kasha was not used to such open hostility. And even at the temple, the priests were always respectful to him. And time, bro?
6 minutes.
And not knowing what to do, Kasha returned to his throne to resume his regal duties. And she shook his head sadly, and then he said, "Poor guy, he's going to die soon." "How so?" asked Rimaru. "Did you notice the doll makers? You can tell a lot about the vibe of the city based on the doll makers. And they have a violent look about them. And even the doll you bought looks like she's ready for a fight," explained Shika. Rimaru looked at the doll and she said, "She does look very angry, doesn't she?" "Just as Mother always said, a city with education and no opportunity is bound to explode sooner or later. And now with a fool bringing in more outside knowledge, things are bound to get worse in no time at all," said Chica. "I have been alive for a while, and technology has never been efficient in getting rid of social problems," said Loica. "It only makes it worse." Such things get terrible. Should things get terrible, you can always come to Veraghetto, offered my Duke. And he reached into his pocket and he brought out a key, and then he said to Loica, "Use this key on any random basement door, and you will have access to the drains. And I will tell La Pega to let you go inside, and you and anyone else you deem worthy. This key is precious, and it should be heavily guarded," said Lorica, taking a more serious squid form. And she then dropped the key, and she felt rather silly for dropping it. "We are going to die sooner or later. Might as well enjoy life and do things in a fashion that helps one sleep at night," said Marduk. "Amen, brother," said Lamina in a mocking tone. And the civilians then started saluting and bowing at Marduk, and Amis had gone down to see what was the commotion in the castle, and the bored guards and nobles seeing Marduk being showered with praises, and Kasha asked Amis, "Who is that man?" "Those who despise him call him the Demon King Marduk," said Amis. "Sounds like you don't like the man," said Kasha. "How perceptible," you said, Amis, feigning surprise. "I am not as big of a fool as I pretend to be," said Kasha, departing. And Amis raised an eyebrow, and he returned back to his study, and he noticed that his book had been moved from location. And he was covering the folks who try to make sense of it, and like most magical users, Amis thought himself of a superior mental specimen. And even though he had abandoned the magic path altogether, he kept inside his sense of superiority bordering on godhood. And Amis looked at himself in the mirror, and he examined the parts of his body he had augmented. And like with most folks who got plastic surgery, he was starting to miss his human limbs already. And he moved towards the window, and he brought out his binoculars to continue spying on Rimaru. Yes, he remembered being like that once. He had been 16 years old, and he had been a super stalker about the situation. And his poor father had told him to grow some balls and go kiss the girl already. And he had done so when he had been in one of those courageous moods. And when he opened his eyes after kissing the maiden's hair had turned pitch black. And then the vampire problems had started, and he remembered this and many other things he had forgotten. And it was only recently when he had seen Rimaru with pitch black hair worn in such a fashion that he had recognized her. And closer to dinner, Loki asked Rimaru, "So what else do you want to do?" "I want to train a little," said Rimaru. "Why bother? There's no reason to fight anymore," said he. "I don't think there was ever a reason to begin with," said Nalini, looking at her brother with suspicion. "In any case, it is good to exercise," said Marduk. And as he opened his cave, and he seamlessly disappeared within, and inside his cave he had a little arena decorated with realistic depictions of the solar system as seen from the asteroid belts, and those belts had changed a lot in appearance ever since the space dragons had stopped hiding. And using illusion, the belts appeared sterile and uninhabited, and now in their true form, they were little flat-type Earth mini-worlds, and each with their single volcano and unique ecosystem. So like the asteroid belts, they're not as barren as they appear to be from far away. And he seemed extended to fight in the little worlds that resemble Helden modes with brimstone and sulfur and boiling magma. And they were always concerned about making their fights look as cinematic as possible, and I had never participated in such play fights because he was tired of violence. And while Rimaru trained, he noticed two children fighting over a dog, and they were pulling out his legs, and the dog already had a dislocated shoulder. And he kicked one of the brats in the face, and then he said, "No doggo for you," and he healed the dog, which caused the dog to whine a lot. And he then took the dog with him, and the parents of the kid who had been kicked in the face went to complain, but he just barked at the grown-ups. And when the parents saw his sharp teeth, they naturally ran away. And between he and his sister Rimaru, the locals were a bit jumpier than usual. And as for Rimaru, her idea of training involved fighting her brothers and sister in earnest, and even with her absorption ability and her fleet foot, she did not last long, and she was soon overwhelmed by Marduk's army of demons. And Loki, shaking his head sadly, said to Marduk, "You should have gone easy on her. If I did, she would have been mad at me, and this is Rimaru Appreciation Day, and she's gonna get exactly what she wants," said Marduk. So Rimaru lost the play fight. She started crying, and Marduk, feeling super guilty, did the logical thing and had his own demons beat him to a bloody pulp. And when he spilled out his tears out of the cave, he saw Marduk and Rimaru in a miserable condition. Smiling, he said, "Don't worry, I will heal you." "Please don't," said Rimaru. "We're fine, we're fine."
17 seconds.
"We're fine, bye bye bye."